Matt here, and I would like to do a review today on the Nikon 85mm prime 1.8D. Now this is the older model. I think they're going to be coming out with a new model of this. Has the aperture ring, so it is the older model. Obviously you've heard of the 35mm 1.8, you know, the 50mm 1.8. These are all the newer ones, the DX series that have the internal focusing motor. This one is a screw drive focusing motor that is not internal, so you need to have a camera that has the screwdriver, basically the motor inside the camera, and can turn the small screw on the back of the lens, which actually focuses the lens. The focusing, it's pretty fast actually for a screw drive. I put it on my D7000 and it's just a little noisy, but I mean it's almost as fast as I'm using a 70 to 300 right now. I mean even at 300 on that lens with the internal focusing motor is actually slower than this, but that's mostly because at 300, you know, it takes a little longer to focus. I would say for what this lens does, the price, you know, you can pick this up used $275, $300 on eBay. New, it's almost $500. But I picked it up on Craigslist $260 is what I paid for it, and it's in good shape, and I'm very happy with the purchase. I haven't got too much time to shoot with it, but I've taken a few sample shots. I've actually taken some sample shots outside today, which I'm going to show you later on my computer, comparing the 24 to 70, which is the 2.8, the Pro lens, known as a very good Pro Zoom, one of the better, sharper ones. This big lens, that's just the lens cap, but that compared to this in sharpness and just detail and kind of how it looks at the edges and such. Different apertures I think I did 1.8, and obviously this will do 2.8 at the minimum, and I did 2.8 on both of them and went up from there. Did some up close so we can see what the barrel distortion is. So we'll go into that later, but kind of the pluses of this lens, you know, you're not paying the top dollar like you're going to pay for the 1.4Gs on, you know, those start at, what is it, $1,200, $1,500. This is a third of the price. But, you know, is a third of the price worth it? I mean, that's kind of what you got to decide what you're going to do with it, because it does have downsides. I'm not going to say, I mean, I haven't used the prime lens, I can't compare them, but from what I've seen, this one has some chromatic abrasion. You don't always see it, and it's pretty easy to clean up in post. It also doesn't have the prettiest background out of focus, and that's probably the key to this lens that keeps it out of the price range, because there's a ton of people who love this lens. There's a ton of people who hate it. It's kind of a love-hate with this lens, because that background out of focus is what people either can't stand it or can live with it. And for the price, I can live with it, because for what I paid for it, I mean, this thing, you can't beat it, really. Background out of focus, let's go a little more into depth into that. It's not smooth, basically. If you take this off and you look at some of the aperture rings, that's pretty much why. I don't know if you can even see that on camera, but the aperture rings, it has less of them, and they're not smooth, basically, which contributes, I think, a lot to the background out of focus. I mean, you know, but Nikon's not going to put their best stuff in a lower end, well, you say mid-range maybe lens, you know. If they did have a background out of focus comparable to, you know, their 1.4s, everybody would buy this. I mean, that's basically it. And the thing is, for what it does, I can live with it. It's not terribly bad. Personally, I think it does better if you stop it up a bit. 1.8, yeah, you know, it's pretty sharp still, but the background out of focus is a little distracting. I've actually done a few things where I've done a depth of field preview and, you know, looked at the aperture ring, and I figured that 2, it looks pretty smooth, so I'm going to do some more testing of that, but 2.8 is also pretty good to use this lens at. Obviously it'll look good up, you know, stop it up to 8 or whatever, you know, it's going to look pretty good. But another good upside to this lens, mount this on the D7000, you got a pretty small camera. If you can go, you know, do some photography where you can actually walk around and get closer or farther away from the subject to put it where you need it to be, heck, this is great. I mean, you could walk around with the camera, pretty lightweight, small lens, you know, it's not huge like this. You know, I don't have a problem with taking this around, but, you know, 3.5, 4 pounds camera and lens gets a little heavy after a while, and I mean, you know, put this on the end, which I like to do, since if the sun's shining, you know, you're gonna need this basically. I've seen, even though it has a nano coating, it still gets some lens flare if you have the sun shining on here without this. Okay, let's go into a little more detail of what comes with this. The hood. And this is another problem that some people don't like about this lens. I'll show you a solution though. Okay, so you got your lens cap on. Okay, the thread is on the inside of this lens hood. It's a metal lens hood, it's nice, but so you got the thread, you can't put the lens cap on. Well, kind of a problem. Go buy you a cheap 77mm, basically the same thing this takes. I have one, but bought this, you know, out in China, whatever, $3. Look at this. Look, nice little lens cap, goes right on the edge. Perfect fit. So now I can throw this in my bag, and when I need to use it, bam, it's ready. So all in all, not a bad lens. Like I said, I'll go into a little more detail on the computer with some sample images between these two, and that's about all I can say. I don't know if I said it has the aperture ring. So basically this is the old model, and the new model is the 35 and the 50 millimeters. They have the motor inside, and really the build quality, I had a 35 millimeter 1.8 DX lens. It felt cheap. I mean, this you can just tell there's a ton more glass. The weight to it is almost probably double, if not more, than the 35 millimeter 1.8. And this hard plastic, it's not a metal, you know, but it's harder plastic. It's more durable than the 35 millimeter. The 35 millimeter DX is, it's like a kit lens. It just feels cheap. I had it, it took good pictures. The glass in it's pretty good. But personally, looking at this and using this, the glasses seems better. It just seems like a better built lens. And personally, I think it takes better pictures too. But that's about all I have for this section of the video. We're going to go more into the details on the computer with actual photos of this lens versus this one, just so we can get some difference in it. And I'll see you then. Thanks.
Okay, here is the sample picture. This is the 85 millimeter at 1.8. We see some chromatic abrasion mostly here around the top of the pizza box. The background out of focus area, if we look up to this top area, there's a fence pole which has some green chromatic abrasion, and the line is kind of rough. I mean, it kind of sticks out. So you can see when I zoom out here, it's not the most smooth thing. It's kind of distracting. Now if we go up to f6.3 on the same lens, most of the chromatic abrasion, pretty much all of it's gone. Now how about the sharpness? This would be a picture at 2.8. This is stopped up one stop, so it's not wide open. I kind of wanted to compare this to the 24 to 70 at 2.8 also. So this is the 85 and this is the 24 to 70. So I mean, if you look at both, they both look pretty sharp. So I may say that the 85 is still a little bit softer. You can kind of see this, and the colors right here, this is kind of more grayish than black. The contrast isn't there. It doesn't seem as much as here's the 24 to 70. There seems to be a lot more contrast, and it seems a little sharper around the edges. Now here's the 85 wide open. This is basically wide open. Still, I mean, it's pretty good. It's sharp. You can see at the edges here, we can see a little bit of the distortions, but still sharp pretty much up to the edge. So it's a pretty good lens for the price.